Yep.
Okay, let's see. Hello everyone. Welcome. Make sure here. Okay, thank you. Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to be here. Thank you for choosing to be here for this important conversation that we wanted to have. It is time to talk. It is time to talk about systemic racism in our profession of dentistry. It is time to talk about racial injustice and implicit bias, microaggressions, and things that affect Black dentists and dentists of color on their journey to becoming dentists and in their everyday life of dental practice. My name is Dr. Layla Haishaw, and I am the founder of Diversity in Dentistry Mentorships. And this is an organization with the vision of our faces of dentistry to reflect that of our nation's ever existing change, if everlasting change and diversity. And so our aim of Diversity in Dentistry Mentorships is truly to reach out to our underrepresented minority youth, in particular Black dentists who are disproportionately represented. I am part of that 4% of Black dentists in the United States. And although I am not an expert of racial injustice or anti-racism, I do have my lived experiences, and they may be different, more or less, than the members of our panelists here today. But it's our hope that you're here to hear our story and listen of where there needs to be change, in not only in our education, our dental school education, or in our institutions, but in our healthcare, but in our practice, and also for the patients that we serve. So we're excited about this panel discussion. We are excited that you're here. Now, just a quick background as to how this came about. Right as the Black Lives Matter movement was emerging, I was struck to, or ignited to just, make a post on our Facebook community. And it was a simple post of just, if it's not hard enough to become a dentist, it's already hard enough. And then basically to share my story. We all have the same experience going through dental school with the trials of the stress and the sacrifices we make. But there is another underlying layer that Black dentists in particular have a common thread of experience with that. And so I asked the members to share their story, and that's when Dr. Jared Williams, who's going to be facilitating this discussion with me, reached out and said, we should have a discussion. I said, yeah, we should. He said, yeah, and we should broadcast it. I said, oh yeah, we should do it in the group. And then since then, it has grown, and I am happy to see that we have a lot of educators in the audience, and of course, a lot of our colleagues, a lot of our allies who want to hear and want to know what can they do, what needs to be done, what needs to change. So with that, I will introduce Dr. Jared Williams. Get that here, and then we will introduce the rest of our esteemed panelists. And also, if I may ask, just if you're viewing this discussion, you can, from this live, share it onto your page or to a group page that you would like to share it upon. And this discussion will be recorded and uploaded so it can be shared as well. So Dr. Jared Williams is known as the concierge dental surgeon and surgical coach. You can learn about all that he does on his website, jaredwdds.com. Dr. Williams is a native Estonian. He graduated from Meharry Medical College with a Doctor of Dental Surgery degree in 2011. After graduation, he completed a GPR residency, general practice residency, at the University of Pennsylvania Veteran Affairs Medical Center. Later, he discovered his passion for sedation and trained at Augusta University, where he received his IV sedation certificate. So I'd like to hear more about that for our audience who's not too familiar. His focus in providing IV sedation, oral sedation, implantology, and coaching. Dr. Williams' motto is service above self, and his goal is to share his passion for dentistry with you. So welcome, Dr. Williams.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's not often I hear that from somebody else's mouth, so I tend to get a little leery about all these accolades. But it's an honor and a privilege to be on this call. But enough about me. I want to introduce these fantastic doctors that are on this forum today. And first, I'm going to start off with none other than Dr. Darwin Hayes. Dr. Darwin Hayes is also known as the new dentist coach mentor. And he is all over social media. I could see him mentoring the next wave of doctors that are going to do some amazing things. He's also the newly appointed state dental director for New Jersey. So that is Dr. Darwin Hayes. He's doing some fantastic things. Once again, he's the new dentist coach, and I implore you to look at his page to see exactly what he could do for you and all those that are in your surrounding. Next is Dr. Jess B. All right, I want to see that smile. Dr. Jess B. There it is, there it is, there it is, there it is. Dr. Jess B. is the proud owner of Brenton Family Dental. She's doing some amazing things, specifically with FLIGHT, which is called Future Leaders in Graduate Healthcare Training, mentoring minority doctors and assisting them through application cycle to address the diversity disparity in doctoral level healthcare careers. So that's Dr. Jess B. I like that smile. I like that smile. I like that smile. And our last doctor, but last but not least, if you look on his Facebook page, he has this beautiful brass instrument. Is that right?
It's true.
I believe he's being humble right now. He's being humble right now. But he is not just a dentist. I want to give you a little bit something that you may not know. He has worked with musicians great such as Shaka Khan. Is that right?
That's right.
All right, I want to make sure. Gerald Albright, Paul Jackson, and many more. Dr. Diggs graduated from UC San Francisco School of Dentistry, and he owns a private practice out in Arizona. He's a lead clinician at the J.C. Rose Prosthodontic Dental Clinic in Tucson, Arizona. He is an educator and served in the department chair for the dental division at Keno Community Hospital and clinical instructor for the graduate dental residency program. Now, he's not the only dental director that's on this call right now. There's some others. And so I just want to say it's an honor and privilege to have you other clinicians here as we talk about diversity in dentistry. And what I want you all to do as you're on here now is make a note to go to each one of these individuals' page and learn more about them, contact them, and see how they could best assist you with their services and their insight and their knowledge, and most importantly, wisdom that they could share with you to make your life amazing.
Well, thank you. I will continue on with our wonderful student doctors that are already showing their leadership skills in the field of dentistry. Student Dr. McKenna Renfro. She is a DDS candidate for graduation in 2022. She is at UCLA, and she is the founder of UCLA SIDE, which is Students for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. So she's a third-year dental school student, and she is driven and eager professional with a passion for learning and providing quality care. She demonstrates a lifelong passion for the advocacy of minorities and children. Student Dr. McKenna is the founder of UCLA SIDE, as I mentioned, and it's a student organization created to broaden the dental students' awareness and understanding of systemic racism, its role in health disparities and health care. She's also the co-president of UCLA's student chapter of the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry. Yay, pedo. And I have to invite everyone, please look on Instagram of their page. I actually go there to find resources, and they're delivering this information at UCLA SIDE and Instagram that is easy to grasp, to comprehend, and easy to share. So I invite you guys to take a look at that. So welcome, Student Dr. Renfro. Give us a little wave. Okay, and then also One close to my heart is my mentee, student Dr. Reed from my hometown of Kansas City. Go Chiefs. She'll be entering my alma mater, dental school, UMKC, School of Dentistry in Kansas City. Student Dr. Shantae Reed completed her bachelor's in biological sciences at the University of Missouri Columbia in 2014. Most recently, she earned her master's in science in biomedical sciences from Kansas City University of Medicine in June 2018. Currently, she works as an adjunct professor of anatomy and physiology at Rockhurst University and Metropolitan Community College. In addition to teaching, she is a full-time orthodontic assistant. Shantae will be starting her next chapter as a D1 at UMKC School of Dentistry. So say hi to all my professors, and we are glad to have you here. We're glad to get the perspectives of our dental students. Some of us may be a little far removed from dental school, but in our discussion, we'll find a lot hasn't changed since I graduated from UMKC 20 years ago. Okay, so thank you everyone again. Let's jump right in. We'll do our discussion for about 30 minutes. We'll look to Facebook to see if you have any questions or comments. So please go ahead and list those in the Facebook feed and we'll try to address those. We're gonna be respectful of the hour. So I know it's late on the East Coast side of the country. So we will be respectful. So why don't we start with the obvious question, which is, sharing your story. Have there been any roadblocks for you on your journey through even undergrad, through dental school, and after? Maybe if anyone wants to start off with that, please feel free to do so. And I bring up that question first. I was talking to a colleague, and she happened to be one of the first graduating residents out of an anesthesia program, a Black female dentist. She, of course, brilliant, did great through dental school, graduated out of Meharry Medical College. And one of her professors actually said to her, and not privately either, that, we'll take it easy. We understand it will take some more time for you since you graduated from a historically Black medical college. And I will say from my stance, I always felt like I had to prove myself. I always felt like people were maybe thinking, did she get here on her own accord, or does she deserve to be here, basically? So anyone wants to start off with that? Go ahead, Dr. Peterkin, Dr. Jesby.
Hello, everyone. For me particularly, I was the first African-American or Black student at my College of Dental Medicine. And I didn't put them in there just because, I don't want to identify them, but in the same token, you can look it up. But as the first and only African-American student, it was very hard because there, for one, were not any professors that looked like me, let alone the support that I needed to be able to carry me through. So it was definitely a lot of roadblocks as it related to that, because I got a lot of questions that were basically microaggressions, challenging whether or not I belonged, whether I deserved to have a seat at the table. And it got very lonely. And so, of course, prior to that, there were also roadblocks because I did attend an HBCU as well. And so, again, that same notion that if you go to HBCU, your education is subpar. And I proved them wrong. I graduated at the top of my class, in addition to the fact that I received an outstanding award from the university for leadership in starting some major programs and networking with the community and providing dental services. But ultimately, it was very discouraging. And the reality is that it does exist. There are implicit biases by professors, deans, and the like. And for me personally, there were times where I felt like I shouldn't have been there and that I wanted to quit. But I thank God that I was able to connect with different mentors, which is why I give you a lot of accolades, Dr. Highshaw, for what you're doing as it relates to diversity in dentistry, because mentorship is needed, especially for people of color, because when we don't see people who look like us, a lot of times we don't see it being possible. And so from that, I just want to say that that's what carried me through. But again, it was definitely a lonely journey.
Dr. Hayes, you had your hand up. Were you gonna?
I mean, I have so much to say, but I'm gonna kind of hold off and interject accordingly. I still want to kind of hear from the current student doctors too, because like Dr. Highshaw said, not too much has changed since we were in dental school. And I'm sure Dr. Diggs can also share with that. Not too much has changed outside of having faculty members that look like us, that are now assistant deans or associate deans of diversity and equity. But, you know, outside of several schools, the percentages are the same as far as the number of students that look like us that are in the classes. And as far as faculty, it just pales in comparison as well. So there's a lot to be done as it relates to recruitment of students, but also recruitment of faculty. And I really think it really needs to start much earlier, meaning, and also it has to be on the hands of not only the dean of the dental school, because the deans run the show, if you guys didn't know, but also those deans also have to answer to university presidents and provosts as well. So it's even on their hands as well, as far as being able to be vocal and also utilizing the strength of your alumni network. And I know for many of us, being traumatized, sorry student doctors that are going through it right now, but being traumatized with dental school, you know, once you're done, you're done. You know, you don't want to have any other association with the school, and that's it. But unfortunately, that puts us at a disadvantage when it comes to the new dentists and new students that are coming through the schools, and it also can cause some disadvantages for us as it relates to faculty that are being recruited, or in many cases not being recruited. So I'll kind of start off with that and continue to listen and get some feedback from others as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask student Dr. Renfro, can you tell us a little bit of, well, I mean, I know why in your heart you started UCLA side, but did you feel like you had the support of your administration and your professors? And how did that come about?
Yeah, you know, I think I've been, you know, surprised at how supportive they've been. And, you know, Dr. Hayes is right. There's really this lack of representation that's still happening in the dental schools. But I think, you know, with UCLA, they've really been great about letting my new organization, UCLA Side, flourish. And they've been talking about curriculum changes where they really want to start discussing racism in healthcare within dental school. So I think I've been pleasantly surprised about these changes and the effort that they are going towards to really talk about what's happening. But I will say, you know, I definitely experience the microaggressions and the implicit biases on a day-to-day basis. And you know, I can tell you a specific story where I was interviewing for dental school at one school, and you know, the interviewer was really just harping about how their effort, what were their efforts with diversity, and you know, I know this Black doctor, and you know, just that was the whole conversation. And I left that interview like they did not know a single thing about me, and all they saw was that I was Black. So that was definitely a roadblock and a challenge for me going into dental school. So.
I want to say this, guys. What I want to do is if it's okay, I want to really focus on the story that you all have, because, you know, the problem is what brought everybody on this call right now. The story is going to keep them. And then we're going to talk about what they're going to do, the solution, what's going to make people change. And so what I really want to do is this is like, you know, what was the story that you all have within, you know, challenges with racism? either going into dental school or, you know, just the whole entire time, because it's like, that's what's going to really be able to allow other individuals who don't look like us to see what's really going on. Because right now we have everybody's ear. And so it's just like, what have you gone through? And be gentle in the sense that, you know, don't share too much to where it, you know, if you unearth something, you may not want to put it back, but just share as much as you can so that we all can get a better understanding. Because one thing I will say is this, everybody's going to go through basically the similar thing. But if we stay in our own little shell and don't allow ourselves to be slightly transparent to the point we can, it's going to be very challenging to help the next group of individuals that are coming behind us. So I know Dr. Diggs, what was your story? And like, what were some things that you faced that's going to help, you know, Dr. Renfo and Dr. Reed? I'm calling that in existence now. I'm calling that existence now. What are some things? What's your story?
I think the important part is while I was at Redlands University, they actually had a couple of recruiters from UCSF that came to the school to, you know, they were talking about minority students, you know, getting into dental school, how they were underrepresented. Basically what they said was the average class size was about 120. Number of Black students never was more than like 3 or 4. So when we got in, they basically, we noticed that, you know, a lot of times some of the professors, you know, would, you know, kind of look at us with a lot of scrutiny. We had heard stories about previous dental students, particularly African Americans, that hadn't finished or made it out or were held back, you know, and they kind of held that over our heads. I'm very happy to say that out of the 5 that are in our class, we're all still practicing. Wow. And one in particular, his particular story, and I am so proud of him, he actually went to Harvard University on a basketball scholarship. Broke his hip. They told him that you're either going to, you know, if you can't play basketball for us, we're going to have to, you know, take your scholarship away. He decided to re-enroll at Harvard and become a chemistry major. Graduated cum laude, came to our school as a Regents Scholar, and graduated in our class. And I'm happy to say that now he is the head of the prosthodontic department at the dental school. Wow. So, you know, and he was in our study group because, of course, you know, as African Americans, you know, usually try to, you know, it wasn't like a decision to stick together. It was a necessity to stick together, study together for tests, and, you know, make sure that we all pass, look out for each other, which is pretty much carries itself on once you get in the professional community. You have to look out for each other, and you have to know what each other are doing. It gets rather interesting. I was lucky because even though it was kind of difficult in school, I did have a couple of dentists who did mentor me and looked after me. One was Dr. Fraser Moore, who he's probably faculty emeritus at USC Dental School. And the others were Dr. Edward Sparks, who came out of Howard University, who looked after us. But I think even more importantly than that is it helps if you go into dental school knowing who you are and what you have to do or whatever. There's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of times when most of us got together and we said, well, this is a good example. We had one Black faculty member at the time. Well, we had 2, but one we didn't see much. The other one was a community clinic instructor, and he actually got us together, had a dinner at his house, and told us, you will notice that when you take some tests, they graded on a curve, of course, bimodal scale, you know what that means. Mm-hmm. And they would tell us, he said, you'll notice that if you as a group score well on the test doesn't count that much. But if you're not near the top of the curve and the other groups score, the test is worth more. And that turned out to be true. So we basically had to have the mindset that we had to score high on all the tests and just to, you know, make sure we stayed within that curve and make sure that we, you know, all got through. Trading notes. You're not an island. You cannot be an island in dental school. You cannot. I think more helpful if you are in dental school, if you know of a Black dentist in the community, get to know them. Get to know them. And now, don't just shadow while you're an undergrad. Get around them while you're in dental school. You learn you can learn a few tips, things that will shortcuts to help you get through. I'm gonna leave it like that, just for right now.
Thank you.
I was just going to add, that's a good point, Dr. Diggs, because you know, for many students that are going to a school for the first time and going to a city where they may not be familiar with, they may not have any other support besides their classmates, and making sure that they interface with dentists in the community, dentists in the city is very key, because also those dentists will be advocates for them, right? And also those dentists may volunteer part-time at the school or may end up doing such additionally. Some of those dentists locally could be graduates of that institution that decided to stay. So I think that's a key component of what we're talking about as it relates to support, you know, getting through, because it's great to get in. Getting in is one thing, but you got to get out. You got to get through and get out as well. And having that support, having that external support is very key, very key. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I wanted to, you know, us to kind of talk a lot on, or a little bit more on the systemic part. You know, us as healthcare professionals, we know a systemic disease is something that's inside, it's in the organs and the tissues. And systemic racism we find in all aspects, in our education and our healthcare. And then as far as those who are going through school and us out of school, how was it just even opening a practice? Did you face roadblocks there where getting the line of credit or the commercial loan, was it as easy? Did you have the generational wealth that your white counterparts had that made it a little bit easier? And so until we can address that these things are happening, I don't know how we can approach it healthy, you know, that way. And I know a lot of people want to know what can I do? It just seems so hard to fix, and we don't expect it to be fixed in one conversation. We hope this is the first of many to come. But I guess just looking at, you know, the schools, and I feel like training and sensitivity training, diversity training, just so it could help not only the students, but also the instructors, the clinical instructors, the professors, to help them obtain some type of divergent view of it and how they can address. Does anyone want to speak to that?
I would like to say that, you know, it's kind of, like you said, it's difficult to address, but one thing that comes to mind for me was just like some of the things that were said even by professors were unwarranted. You would hear from peers, and for me personally, being the only Black student and the very first Black student at my school, I heard a lot of things. Like, I almost got written up one time because my hair was an afro and in its natural state, and it was unkempt, which is, you know, Susie Q has her hair growing from her scalp the way that it is, and there's no problem. But for me, my hair is growing out from my scalp the way that it is, but now there's a problem with professionalism. Things like speech. There were words that were conveyed in class that I was not able to understand because it's not something that ever came up in my house. Granted, my family doesn't speak Ebonics. My family has more of an island influence because my mom is first generation American. My family is from the Bahamas. So a lot more, you know, island slang, but for the most part, like, we spoke proper English in our regard. But in school, like, sometimes when they were communicating, there were things that I didn't know would go right over my head, even if, because a lot of times the students can relate to like test questions or things they would pull from their own experience when professors were speaking, and I'd be like, I don't get the joke, or I don't know where that reference comes from because that doesn't apply to my life. I've never experienced that. As well as just kind of being isolated in the sense that, like, you know, I'm trying to think of one particular instance where in school, you know, when we had group assignments and, you know, I was the one who started working on something and I had all the answers because I'm like really passionate about this area, and then all of the students would kind of shun you and not regard your answer because clearly you don't know as much because you're Black, you know? One other thing that I feel is a big thing for me was that when it came to like Student National Dental Association, I was the only Black student. So I couldn't even start that organization on my campus because no one was interested. I tried, but no one was interested because there wasn't a student population that needed that. I was the only Black person. There were not any Hispanics in my class. Everyone was, you know, white. And there were a few, you know, Southeast Asians and things like that, but I was literally by myself. And so I think when professors see that, there has to be a certain level of sensitivity to the matter and what they say and how they address you, because sometimes even if I felt passionately about something, it would be like, oh, you know, you're the Black girl with the attitude. Just things that my counterparts would never have to deal with. And I just feel ultimately, in reality, if we had more people who look like us in the school or in the arena of dentistry, in the educational system, then it wouldn't be so. The last thing I would want to share was that most of the people that were Black on my campus were like custodians and like people that worked in sterilization. And so like I used to kind of talk to them because you see someone look like you, you're like, hey, you know, I want to connect because I'm feeling like I'm by myself, you know, and they're like, oh, we proud of you, you know. But I'm like, it's hard to relate because they don't understand dental school. And so literally it's just, I just feel like ultimately the cure to it is not so much everyone, a lot of it is mindset, but aside from that, if we have more people who look like us, there'll be a lot more understanding and a lot more acceptance. Even when it comes to like educational presentations, slides for like pathology, they would never show a Black person, but it would be something that affects Black people at an alarming rate, like lupus. They would show white people and like Black people would never be able to identify it, but then they would say Black people are at the highest risk of developing this condition. Just things like that. And I'd be like, I would bring it up like, how come you guys talked about this condition and said that it affects Black people predominantly, or they're more predisposed to this condition, but then you don't show pictures of Black people with the condition for us to be able to diagnose it. Just things like that. Yeah.
But why would they? They don't know.
Right. Well, they know that it affects Black people more. Black people are more predisposed, but they're not thinking to show an image of a Black person because to them, the standard is white.
Absolutely, and if there's no students in the class that identifies with that population that they're sharing, they wouldn't think normally
right.
to share more information. Just like I'm pretty sure, depending on what school you go to, probably more than 50% of the patient population does not look like those students that are in the school. In most dental schools, at least probably. More than probably 60 of the 65 schools. It's very, especially the schools that are in metropolitan areas. They do the faculty and the students do not make up the same percentage of those patients that are part of the population that the dental school is serving. So again, it gets back to the awareness and the mindset that we know we have, but that educators, the deans, faculty members have to be put on task to understand why this is important. So this is why this discussion is important. And I hope we also are able to take away some strategic things that we need to have on our list to put pressure on the schools that you all as students right now are paying all this money as an investment to get trained in.
Well, I would say this. I really want to hear Dr. Reed's comment. She's been very quiet. She's very quiet. But I want to know, like, you're hearing the story of Dr. Jesby, you're hearing Dr. Hayes, you're hearing Dr. Diggs. What are you thinking as you're coming into dental school in August, September, I guess, whenever they let you guys in? What are your thoughts? Like, what's running through your head right now? Because you're walking into it. And so we want to make sure that we hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So when someone made the comment of they couldn't imagine that dental school is much different 20 years from when they were in. When I attended my acceptance day, the entire time I was just praying that I just needed people of color there, and I needed at least one other female so that I can have that connection on a multi-identity level. Mm-hmm. And I am the only African-American female in my class of 109. 4 African-American people in the class total. So I do have 3 boys, but I don't have another female. And that like hit hard for me. You know, I mean, I still have that, you know, race identity that I can get with the guys, but it's just mind blowing out of 109 students, that I can say that I am the only African-American female in my class. And I know in the class above mine, there is only one African-American person, and it's a female. But it's just kind of, it puts a lot of pressure. I feel like as people of color, we have a lot of pressure anyway, because like you all have stated, a lot of people don't feel like we have earned our place at the table, but beside them, or beside our white counterparts. And so it just kind of even loads on that pressure even more. And I actually had the opportunity to, you know, connect with my school's SNDA and hear a lot of their experiences. They've actually shared those recently to the administration, and it seems like they are listening, and have presented, you know, things to implement change. But hearing all their stories, as an incoming D1, I wasn't shocked. So hearing that they felt mistreated by faculty, hearing that their peers make very insensitive comments, hearing that they feel like they can't respond to these things because they don't want to be an angry Black woman or the angry Black man, all of those things are complete. They're just not a shock. And I think that's so sad, because we just deal with so much with the stress of dental school already. And then we have to turn around and peel back another layer of stress to maintain this realm of being calm, or you know, being who others need us to be to potentially fit in, you know, this box that they have for us. We can't upset them or shake the table or anything like that. So
yeah,
I mean, it's interesting.
I'm so sorry to hear. I'm disappointed to hear that you are the only Black female, because, you know, when there's no common ground. You don't have a demographic there that, like you said, you can relate to. And sometimes what I fear is that our voices won't be heard when you're at the table. And we do a lot of group projects. We're in the lab. There's someone to help you out on casting that crown. You don't have this or that. But it is hard to reach out to someone that you don't have that common ground with. So I just think being aware of that is going to be really important for you. I know you're smart. I know you're strong. I know you'll get through it. That just shows the resilience that I think we all have, that, you know, it just stretches us, but it makes us stronger. But it shouldn't be that way. And that makes me mad. And that's what we definitely want to address with our schools, our institutions, and our dental schools. And also, I don't know, and Dr. Hayes, do you know, does every dental school have an assistant dean of diversity, inclusion, and equity?
Well, that would be a good place to start as it relates to this conversation right now. Mm-hmm. I would probably say no. I would probably say no. I mean, I have a couple of colleagues that are at Columbia and at Michigan, and now at Tufts. Dr. Holloway just got appointed at Tufts.
Yeah, that's great.
All the work that she's been doing. And I'm sure there's a couple of other schools as well, but probably not. Probably not.
I'm sorry to jump in on you, Dr. Hayes, but I want to say this: like, I'm hearing the tone of where this is going, and I want to flip it, and I want to know. Because the thing is, this is like, we've done so well as African Americans with all the crap and all the mire that we found ourselves in. And one thing I want specifically Dr. Renfro and Dr. Reed to know, that you guys are coming from a stock that is like none other. And so I want for you to understand that as you're going through this process, it's easy to tell your story and get wrapped into it so tight that you can't see any other solutions and anything around you. And so this right here is specifically to give you all exactly, and not just you all, but those that are also listening, you know, the tools that's needed. You just heard Dr. Jess B. She got in and out, and she's a practice owner, and she's able to reach back, and she's on this call right now, because there's a lot of individuals that get disenfranchised about the whole process and just go to the other side. And so as we're listening, like, you know, I also want us to understand that there has been a lot of individuals that have been able to overcome, not just in our close time frame, but as you go a little further back, like the Tuskegees, the W. Du Bois, you know, so on and so forth. And so I want you to really recognize where you're coming from. So as we go through this this form, like really think about, like, whoa, wait a second. If Dr. Butch could do it, and nothing against him, if Dr. Hershaw could do it, if Dr. Hayes could do it, if Dr. Jess B could do it, doggone it, then, you know, I'm on the call, then I'm going to make it through, and I'm going to do it flying colors, and I'm going to break this whole thing, not in a contentious type of way, unless it's needed, but I'm going to be smart, and I'm going to go through this accordingly so I can open up that floodgate for those that are right behind me. So really take it from that perspective as well.
I just wanted to chime in that I just want to give 15-minute grace that we're to the hour. I really want to be respectful of time, but I also wanted to make sure we get some comments that were coming in the feed. But also, if we could, you know, a lot of our colleagues, you know, and also too, we have a lot of dentists in the audience right now, and I'm going to do right by them and know that it's never the intention for the majority for this to happen to our Black students, our Black dental students, and Black dentists, but it is what it is. You know, this disparity is there, and so this is why we are grateful that we have the ear, and we do want to have some tangible deliverables, call to actions that we want for everyone to do. I just thought, and just in this discussion, especially when Dr. Jess B was talking, because she is very active in our leadership here, our state dental association, perhaps just if we could all reach out to our state organization of organized dentistry to see what needs to be done. I know myself and a couple other colleagues in the Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, we're trying to reach out to our specialty and our academy to have more discussion so we can get this training in cultural competency. You know, what does cultural competency mean to you? What does the diversity sensitivity training mean to you? So we can talk about that, but maybe we could take a question. I believe, Dr. Hayes, you saw a question that came in from a viewer that said, did anyone consider schools with higher population of Black students? Anybody?
I did, but the crazy thing about it is that even though there's two, right? Those two schools are the highest producers of African-American Black dentists, which is crazy because there's so many other schools. But they only have so many seats. The schools are smaller. So it's not like they have all the seats. They don't have a class of 122 students. So the school that I went to my class was 131, a lot of people. So, you know, you get in where you fit in, right? Wherever the door is open, but we apply to that, but the seating is limited. But even still, that dichotomy is huge, like that they produce the most African-American dentists, but they're the smaller schools and there's only two of them. So yes, we apply, but obviously, you know, we can't always get in.
I would say that something very important to remember, and I'd like to address this to the two students, the one that's in dental school and the one that will be attending dental school. When you come out, when you go into practice or whatever group you are, you most likely, unless you're back east, down south or whatever, you'll be in a community with, you know, mixed racial. A lot of the problems that a lot of dentists face are like, if you're in a mixed community, you're trying to market yourself toward the Black community, but you also realize, you know, you want to try to see everyone. The mindset in the community, which sometimes is good and sometimes isn't, is that, well, I don't want to go see a Black dentist because of blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you something. When we all come out of dental school, we all learn the same thing. There is no Black dentistry or white dentistry. It's dentistry. And we're just as competent, if not had to work harder, than the other ones that are there. So when you come out with that mindset. You do dentistry just as good as anyone else. You learned just what everyone else did learn. And a lot of times, I mean, honestly, for the women there, women now compromise, you know, about 50% of dental classes. When I was in dental school, they were 17%. Now they're 50%. So it is rolling in your favor. And the main reason for that is because most patients feel that if they have a female dentist, she will be more empathetic, which even when I've seen a colleague of mine who's female dentist, yes, they are. And patients, you know, and since we are in a business that has this shroud of fear around it, that helps allay their fears. So it does work. So, I mean, you do have a tremendous advantage when you come out. Just don't lose heart and do network within your community, you know, to get your, you know, get the feelers out there, find out who's for you and who will help you along your way.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Diggs. I actually wanted to ask the doctors in this chat, as they've kind of been more seasoned in their careers, do you guys still feel like you have to, you know, really prove yourself to your new patients? Because I think that's something I definitely struggle with in dental school, as I'm assigned these new patients, and, you know, they've, you know, probably never been treated by a Black doctor before or a Black dentist. And so that's something I definitely feel like I have to prove myself to them. And so I'm just wondering, does it kind of get easier as your career goes on and gets a little bit more established?
I would say, go ahead.
I don't know if I should, I'm the moderator, but I would say this, keep it real quick. Be yourself. Like, you are perfect just the way that you are. And when you're yourself and you're operating in your purpose, you gain energy from being you. And so as you're going through this dental school experience, the moment you flip and you start having a split brain personality, your confidence is shot, your skills are shot, and everything about you goes out the window. And so definitely just be yourself. If people don't respect you, if they don't like you, there's really not much that you could do, especially if you haven't done anything to cause them to treat you that way. So just continue being yourself and let the chips fall where they may.
And your job is not to get everyone to accept you. Like, sometimes it's not worth the headache, you know, to try and appease everyone. So it's easier for you to just be yourself. Like you said, I use that slogan a lot, because just be yourself. But for me, I just say that, you know, it's not even worth the hassle of trying to make them. If they're gonna like you, they like you, and that's the kind of patient that you want.
And also at the end of the day, your license that you'll have is not about who likes you and who doesn't like you, because you are still going to be held to a standard. So one thing I always say is, everything's not for everybody. Everybody's not for everything, right? So if they don't want to be treated by you, next.
Yeah, and that took me a while to grow that thick skin. You know, I started out first, I was like, oh, they think I look too young, and then I was trying to look older than I was, and then I straightened my hair. I tried to, you know, not stand out and to be more accepted. And you know, actually once when I was taking pictures for my website, when I met the photographer, my hair was natural and curly, and she's like, oh, but I've seen it straight before. Did you put curls? I know this is my natural hair. She said, oh, well, for the professional shots, you might want to flat iron your hair. Ooh. Okay, you know? Ooh. And sadly, I went along with it. And so now it's like, if someone's asking for, you know, when I first started, I was in a group practice, and they asked to see the American doctor, and that was not me. Of course, I'm American, but, you know, this is implicit bias that is hard. And, you know, looking through, there's so many comments, I feel like we're just not going to get to everything. That means there's going to need to be a part 2. But how are we, or how can they become aware of their implicit bias? I just don't know. You know, I do think that that's where we need to get the, you know, training and expertise in this area that start in the dental schools, for, like I said, for the professors and the students. We're not gonna be able to change the world. That's gonna just take everyone's part of it to all pray that hearts are changed. But is there any advice on, besides just, you know, proving however you are and being true to yourself? I think even an implicit bias, really, honestly, guys, do you agree that we all have it, even us as Black dentists? We do. But I think for me, I feel like just being aware of it, that you've subconsciously had these ideas, and just stop yourself for a minute and just kind of take a breath and think about your actions that follows those thoughts. Anybody else?
Oh, I would say yes. I guess you would call it inspiration comes from, I'm from Compton, California. And yeah, I know. And so there is, but there was a group of doctors who came out of Meharry Medical College. Most of them have passed on now, but they actually went into a predominantly white area of Los Angeles and founded what was called the Julian W. Ross Medical Center. They were so good that they had white clients from Hollywood and everyone else coming to see them. And never once did they waver or doubt themselves.
Yes. And
that was back in the, mine was a pediatrician. And the thing that they told us was that, we do learn how to do the collective bargaining, get together. If they don't want you in, a certain hospital or in this certain area of town, then you buy the land, you build and have people come to you. Because if you're good, you're good. Yeah. It may take a while, but people eventually see it. You worked hard, you went through the school, you paid your dues. And if some people don't see it, they're right. They just won't see it, but then they just miss out on a really great opportunity to become one of your patients. So you just keep moving. You just keep moving.
I have a question that came in from Emily. The question is, how do we overcome the implicit bias of admissions officers and those who are interviewing us when we are seeking admission to their institution? That's from Emily Rosette on Facebook.
Well, admissions officers have to get the training as well. They have to understand and be intentional in their own awareness of what they're doing, or in this particular case, what they don't know and realize that they're doing. But again, that's why I really think it has to be intentional at the school, right? Because you can't necessarily always make somebody do something as an individual. But if it's part of the curriculum, if it's part of the culture of the school, to make sure that everyone is treated with equity, then you'll start maybe having some faculty members that realize, well, maybe this is not the right place for me to be, or I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. But I think that's where, and I know we're not really talking about solutions, but I think there's an opportunity to have that discussion, so that, to answer Emily's question, it has to be intentional within the school administration. It's got to be.
Jessica.
I think outside of that, also having the representation on the admission committee, and obviously I know that sometimes it can be hard to find that demographic in the state, because, like, for instance, maybe like North Dakota doesn't have it. I don't know if they have a dental school or not, but I think if each admissions committee had a great representation that reflects the community in which we serve, then we probably wouldn't have as much of a problem, because I know for me, I would be mindful of that thing, right, that, okay, this class that we're picking is not representative of what this community looks like. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's find someone who is qualified, but from a different ethnicity, to make sure that we balance this out, so that we can, address this issue. And I feel like if we had that, even if it's not necessarily a Black person, even if it's someone, with a little bit more melanin, they would be more mindful of that as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, that brought up a memory. I remember when I first started the Facebook community of diversity and dentistry mentorships, and when the dental classes were selected, and found out that, like, a mentee I had wasn't admitted, and I was, expressed my frustration, and then he was like, well, probably because, if her grades weren't there, she didn't deserve to go to be accepted. And that's not always the case. That's, again, I feel that's implicit bias, is think that she didn't get admitted because she wasn't academically strong. But it is a mission, though, of this. I didn't mention that Diversity in Dentistry Mentorships is a nonprofit, and really the mission is, I want to get to the youth sooner. And if we need to prepare these students, and not only prepare, but expose them to the profession of dentistry at a young age, let them explore it. A lot of my patients, when I say, do you want to be a dentist when you grow up? They're like, me? Like me? It's like, of course. So we're trying to reach youth, empower them, educate them to pursue a career in dentistry through mentoring. And just like Dr. Dick said, you need not only have a mentor as your journey through to dental school, but even while you're in dental school, and even after. I have a mentor now, and I have a mentee, and I'm, we're all practicing. So I know we're getting close. There was just one other thing I wanted to just bring up. A question is like a lot in the feed, and then we'll have any closing comments, and then maybe we can answer some of these questions in the feed later. Is a lot of the allyship that's out there just really wants to know what they can do right now. To me, I feel we need you to not only support us, but by being anti-racist. And that's a big term that's going around right now. And I don't know that everyone truly understands what that means, because all the little microaggressions, they're said by your patients to the dental assistant about or to the doctor about their dental assistant. It just happens all the time in everyday life. And it's about using your voice and speaking up, and not letting it pass. Because we've been too long just surprised by how people were just shocked that we have had these experiences. Is it because they're willfully, just disregarding it, or just truly don't realize that this is happening? So I don't want to end on anti-racism, but if someone could just talk on that, and then we'll probably close up.
Yeah, I think education is really important. There's a lot of great resources, a lot of great books out there, and just really diving into those and learning about what's going on in these communities. And I think that can really help you and guide you to figure out where you can help, and where, just where your area of expertise can be utilized. So.
I also believe that there was a so one thing I will say is this, in terms of the solution, African Americans didn't create racism in this capacity. So I don't think that it's our job to try to make somebody do it. Like, if you're sitting with your colleagues and they don't look like the individuals that are on this forum, it's up for you not to just read a book, not just to join a new club, but to ask questions and figure out, or speak on things that just aren't right. I want to say, if you start there, there's a good YouTube video that talks about white rage. And I want to say what it does is it digs into the history of what transpires in America. And by being able to understand the history, you'll be able to understand some of the solutions that are afforded to us, not just for the future, but here moving forward. So I want to say, if you start there, and there's another young lady, I'm forgetting her name, but she talks about racism, and she talks about it on a fundamental level, that sometimes it's just a choice. And when you really look into that, you'll really be able to start those solutions. But I really think it's a disadvantage for us as African Americans to say, hey, here's a solution, because we didn't necessarily create this challenge.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Dr. Williams. You were an excellent moderator. Thank you for facilitating the discussion. Thank you so much to our panelists here today. I just want to go around and give everyone an opportunity for any final words, final thoughts.
Go to the youth. Go to the youth that are out there. Recently, I was talking to a bunch of high school students, particularly young Black males, asked them what they wanted to do. Most of them talked about, I want to be a professional ball player, I want to do this and that. I had to tell them it was easier to become a dentist or a doctor than it is a professional ball player. Much. You're looking at 67 dental schools that have at least a 50% acceptance rate. You're looking at NBA, NFL teams that take 0.1% of all the people that come through. Do the math.
Well, okay.
Oh, that other young lady that was referencing, her name is Jane Elliott.
Oh, okay.
Jane Elliott, and the other individual that I was referencing was, her name is Carol Anderson, and she's out of Emory University. So if you look at some of the items that they talk about on YouTube, you'll definitely get an understanding of the solution-based ideologies that you can bring to those in those situations.
No.
Go ahead. I was just going to add for pre-dental students that are considering dental school, you know, you really need to get involved with the student, the undergraduate student SNDA that could be at your current school. There may be a chapter. If not, it's a great opportunity to create one so that you can start to get linked in and networked with students that look like you that are aspiring dentists or physicians, and start, you know, developing those networks, because those networks are going to be important as you apply to school. They're also going to be important as you go through school. And then, of course, they're going to be just as important as you start with your day-to-day practice and profession of dentistry. You know, I was just going to add that I think that networking piece is very key as it relates to getting into school and getting through school, but also, you know, utilizing groups like this, the National Dental Association, other dental organizations that have some emphasis or have the same type of energy that you have as it relates to making sure that all members have a voice and are heard and are willing to kind of rally up with you to bring forth some of these injustices that are constantly happening or have continued to happen in the voice of health equity. Because at the end of the day, that's what, you know, we're going to be responsible for is maintaining the health of not only people that more likely the people that look like us, and being there for them as their oral health consultants. So networking is very key. Whether you're one at your school or one in your class, you may have to spend a little bit more time just continuing to network both within your school, but also externally. And I think that'll help with your getting through dental school during the time that you're in.
I wanted to say, just lastly on the anti-racism thing, I know that a lot of people I've seen colleagues put in the comment section, how can I help? And just a few things. The biggest thing is to identify. So you want to identify your implicit biases. It was already said before that you want to think about what you're going to say before you say it. Sometimes you speak out of your mouth without necessarily understanding the power of your words. And if you think it might sound racist, if you repeat it to yourself, chances are it is. And if you have to preface it with, I don't mean to be racist, or I'm not racist, but then you probably shouldn't say it. The other thing is to identify the bias of your family and friends. If you hear them say something, and speak up. As an ally, you have to fight with us. So part of that is, if you're a dental student and you hear it, speak up. If you are a dentist and you hear it amongst your colleagues, speak up. If you are a parent and you hear it amongst your family and your friends, speak up. That's a part of being an ally, and that is what you can do to help us fight. The fact that these things are being said, and whatever you say out of your mouth, it's in your heart. And so we want to try and eradicate what's in the heart of people and speak words that are positive and uplifting for the Black community, especially in this time. And then lastly, also, don't feel like it's only our job as Black dentists to look at Black children and say, hey, are you interested in becoming a dentist? Sometimes the power is left in your hands as well, because I know for me, who inspired me to become a dentist was a white female. I never met a Black dentist until I graduated from college. For me, it was a white dental hygienist who said, you are so smart, you should become a dentist. And I told her, I couldn't be a dentist. I don't think, I don't want to go to school that long. Then I started looking into it. Then I was like, I'll be a dental hygienist. And then she was like, no, you are smart. You need to be the doctor. And I'm like, okay, and here I am. So sometimes it takes your words as well to pour into that young Black child to tell them you're worth it and you are enough and you can become whatever you want. It's just really important all the way around to identify your words, identify people, identify your biases. And I think that that is part of what the solution will be.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. I didn't mean to cut off anyone else. Anyone else? I think that's a wonderful way to bring this forum to an end. Thank you, Dr. Jesby. Thank you, Dr. Renfro, Dr. Reed, Dr. Hayes, Dr. Diggs, Dr. Williams. And everyone, thank you for, again, choosing to be here to listen. I do want to ask if you know of anyone, someone you know, a child that's smart and should be the dentist, to invite them to our Facebook community at Diversity and Dentistry Mentorships. I'm calling on all parents, grandparents, teachers, educators, doctors, physicians, dentists, anyone who feels they can contribute to share the information that we have with these students so that we can change this staggering statistic. And so it doesn't take another 20 years to have more dentists to reflect that of our nation. And then also, as Dr. Hayes mentioned, in healthcare equity, we all want our world to be a better place. And it's going to take the responsibility of everyone, regardless of race, age, gender, economic status, sexual identity. The first step in making the change is not acknowledge the problem and to work together. And I feel we've done that. So in dentistry, though, we need our dentists to feel worthy and supported and equipped to care for all their patients equally. So I thank you guys all again for being here. I will save this in the feed. Please share it. We'll try to get to comments in there, and hopefully we can come back for some more discussion in the future. Thank you all.
Part two.
Love to all. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you.